Welcome to the Building and Growing podcast. We're delighted to have Kate, Eady and Becky Matheson here today, joining us from the Unwrapped agency. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you so much. You've travelled down from Yorkshire to London on one of the hottest days of the year. And I think we're all a bit sweaty from the tube.
We are, but it's all good.
That's good. Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, super excited today to discuss all things brand, all things marketing. Why don't we kick off with some intros? And Kate, feel free to go first.
Yeah, I'm Kate Eady. I've been in business for 31 years and I'm a brand strategist. So I'm a designer by trade, but brand strategy now, specialising in brand architecture and brand reputation and growth.
Fantastic, amazing. I'm sure we'll dive into those subjects later on. And Becky, over to you.
Oh, hi, I'm Becky Matheson. I'm a performance strategist by trade, and I've worked in digital marketing for 22 years now, and I'm the CEO of the Unwrapped agency.
Excellent. Welcome. And I think that's a great, sort of partnership, brand and performance together, to unlock a lot of growth. But why don't we go into Unwrapped agency and, what it is. So, Kate, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, Unwrapped started just over 9 years ago. And there's a reason why Unwrapped started and why I created Unwrapped. And that was because there's a lot of agencies out there. There's absolutely loads of agencies. But what you get is there's a lot of digital agencies, a lot of brand agencies, and they lock and they don't work seamlessly together. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to do at that stage was bring experts in every field, lots of different fields, from journalism to digital to all these specialisms under one roof, because I believed, and it has happened, that is where the magic can happen, rather than just specialising in one specialism. Specialising there, sorry. Rather than specialising in just one thing, because you get different points of view. Yes. So when you're doing something, you get a digital point of view who think it's the most important thing. I think it's brand, and I'm like, hello, it's, my thing's most important. You've got a comms specialist who thinks it's, and you start to get something a little bit different. So that's how Unwrapped grew, and it's what we're still doing today.
Fantastic. Excellent. And anything you want to add there, Becky?
Yeah, I suppose just to kind of go on what Kate was saying, we do find a lot of time when you kind of start in a marketing journey or branding journey, you go about, the brand comes first. So if you do go to a specialist brand agency and they create a brand and it's a great brand, but if they haven't got the kind of digital skills or the performance skills within the agency, once it's passed over to the performance team to then get results, it hasn't necessarily been considered in the same way. Yep. So that's where, when Kate was saying, when everyone comes together right at the start to have an input on how it looks, how it sounds, how the brand is represented and how it's going to deliver in the end. And it's through that journey or from the start, that's when you get the best results at the end. And that's what I find exciting about Unwrapped.
Fantastic. That's great. And, I guess in our sort of conversation before the podcast, the two of you mentioned quite a few different industries that, you work with. So just wondering if you want to dive into some of those.
Yeah, I mean, the one we're best known for, I think, is healthcare. Mm-hmm. Because we work in medtech, health tech, we work with the NHS, we work internal comms in healthcare, we work with software companies trying to get into the NHS, insurance companies, we work with doctors, GPs. We really do cover the whole, and specialists as well. So we're in theatre doing videos. We really do cover the whole thing. And you get to know the speak, you get to understand all the things of how you need to market to these people, what you need to be saying, because of all the contacts and everything you have. And it's brilliant. Love it. You're learning. But that's just one of the things that we do. Do you want to go?
Yeah. So on the healthcare as well, through experience and from doing it many, many times, healthcare is an interesting one because there are so many different things that you have to kind of think about from kind of a sensitivity point of view, but also from a platform perspective and from a regulatory perspective. So, for example, there are certain platforms, like if you were using, for example, Google AdWords, there are certain products that you cannot advertise that might be pivotal to what is being sold. I'll give an example of that. Kind of one of the markets that we're starting to kind of find a very little niche with is CBD.
Okay, yes.
And another drugs and substances that are kind of becoming are regulated and legal to be able to use, but some of the platforms haven't quite caught up with those regulations. So when people have marketing strategies or go in to kind of market them as a kind of secondary thing, they've created a product, they've created a brand, they've taken pictures of these products with, for example, CBD written on the product, and then they're coming to embark on marketing and trying to get them in the search engines. They're found that they're banned, they can't do it because you're not allowed to say those words.
Yes.
It's the same across other platforms as well. And then you can end up with things like your account getting suspended, not being able to get in front of your customers, and especially if you're a startup and needing to get in front of those customers quickly, you may not have got kind of established within search engines, so you're not getting found organically, and then you can find yourself in a very kind of like difficult situation where you can't market online. So that's one of the things that we're kind of starting to kind of, I say, specialise in. It's one of the areas of the medical world, but understanding there's so many different areas to it that people need to think about, I suppose, when taking a product to market and start up and scale up in the medical world.
I think so, and I think what's really, I don't know if the word sad is sometimes that when this happens quite a lot actually, when clients come to you and they've spent quite a lot of money. They've had all their packaging, branding done with a naivety. Because they haven't, and this is when Becky was talking there about understanding things before you get into branding.
Yes, yeah.
And I know because I'm old enough to remember what it was like being on the other end. And if you don't understand that knowledge, so they come to you and say, it's not working, but I've spent 20, 30, 40,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh my God, of course it's not worked. Because of this. And it's quite sad when that happens. And you have to kind of put it right.
Because it's clearly a preventable issue.
Yeah,
it's something that's
absolutely
known, but I guess it's known by you guys because you're so into that industry and you understand the specifics of the healthcare industry.
Yeah. Absolutely, and what people are looking for. If you're trying to get in with, is it procurement? Are you trying to get in with the CEO? What are you trying? And what language do they use? How do we market to them? How does it look? What do they want to know? It's all those things.
Yeah.
So everyone, although we work with a lot of healthcare, everyone's a little bit different.
Indeed.
That's what's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we also do fintech, which we're getting into.
So that's one of the kind of industries that we're starting to kind of get a lot of inroads in and get some wonderful clients in, and also property.
Okay, fantastic.
So we do have a very wide spectrum of other clients as well. We predominantly do B2B, probably about 20% B2C.
Yes, fantastic. And are there any particular things that you guys support on in, say, the fintech or the property industries?
Property industries, again, it's quite wide, but it's about companies usually are wanting to grow in the property. So everything from an estate agent to new startups wanting software, wanting to support companies wanting to support the property industry, from conveyancers. There's lots of different things, and actually, funny enough, it goes into insurance and it goes into banking, which actually goes into the fintech side of things. So it all kind of flows in an awful lot. But it's supporting them. What I found with the property industry, and the people I work with are quite high profile, but they know this. It's really behind in its marketing.
Yes. At
least 10 years behind in its marketing. You would not get away with what they get away with in other industries.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that's because it's kind of, they do what they've always known. So there's companies trying to do things differently.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's really, we do all sorts of different things in property, and it's really quite exciting.
Fantastic. That's great.
I think one of the things as well is, although we have this kind of industry knowledge and we've started to kind of make specialisms within these industries, it is all just audience-led strategies.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't really matter which industry it is if you're focusing from the beginning on who do we want to speak to, what are the benefits for them, who are they, what are their needs, wants, motivations, emotions, you know, where do they work, what do they do, and how do we speak to them. It doesn't really matter what we're selling if we know that information, and then we can tailor the marketing strategies and the branding and the comms directly to them. So while we do have this kind of specialisms within Wrapped, audience-led strategies are just audience-led strategies.
Indeed.
Emotion. They're all, everything we do, everything is emotional-led.
Yes.
Everything anybody does in a daily, everything we all do is emotional-led.
Indeed.
And it's just being really understanding of not people's emotions, because that sounds wrong, but understanding their motivations and understanding how behaviour is changing. Different generations. We might want the same thing, but we're different ages, so we would talk in a different way.
Indeed.
We would search in a different way.
Yes.
We would expect things in a different way. So it's just understanding.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, I mean, my elderly parents are visiting from Australia at the moment, and so that sentence really resonates well in terms of, you know, wanting the same thing but expressing it in different ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. Different generations. But you might be selling the same thing, and people put things out and go, do you know what, I'm getting nothing.
Yeah.
No wonder, because nobody's resonating with it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think when you're profiling as well, so when we start working with a client, we always start with establishing facts. So auditing their presence, auditing their website, auditing anything they've done so far, but then all the research and competitor research, consumer research, what's happening right now, social listening. And then we get into profiling of these audiences. And one thing that I think comes out of the way that we profile is not just your demographics of who they are, what age they are, where do they live, and all the kind of normal kind of profiling that is expected. The needs, wants and behaviours, as we've just said, and the kind of platforms and devices that are on, if it's a digital strategy. But lastly, how do they want to consume the information you're giving to them? Because we can get the audience right, we can get the emotional connection right, we can get the platform right. But if somebody doesn't want to read a blog and they want to listen to a podcast, then they're not going to read the blog. They might be able to read, the blog might be in front of them, but you're not meeting them where they want to be, and therefore you're not going to get traction on it. And the same, it might be a video, it might be someone who just wants to have a bullet point of facts. And that is what kind of part of it you can't necessarily profile. There are elements to it. So there's certain things that we have picked up on the way that, for example, you know, if we're one of our target audiences, nurses, we know that video content, consumable small snippets of video content is what a lot of nurses prefer to have, because they have the phones when they're on the breaks.
Yes.
And that gets really good traction. But it's, as marketeers, I think sometimes we expect people, we've written this content, we put it in front of you, why don't you read it? Because I don't want to.
I think the thing there is want to.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't want to read my content about how brilliant I am? It's crazy. And when you say it like that, people are like, oh, yeah, you're just telling people. And then you say, do you know what? I sent out all these emails and I've only got 2%. The rest of the people don't want to read emails.
Yeah.
You know, have you thought about that? And also, we're very good on accessibility. And everything's on about accessibility at the moment, but most people don't do accessibility. They might be able to switch a colour on their website, to yellow and what have you, but that's not accessible. Just making sure, not just font size, making sure there's lots of things that you need to do to be accessible. And we just need to all be a bit more mindful of it. And as a designer, creativity, if you're a true designer, that should not be a problem. We all want to use size 6 point because it looks nicer, but you should still be able to be creative with what what is needed.
Indeed, yeah.
To be accessible.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether, like, Google or other search engines end up kind of like giving poor rankings to sites that aren't accessible, just like how they did when, like mobile devices proliferated, and if your website wasn't mobile responsive, Google punished you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things like point size and stuff, that's already been as part of a kind of, like I said, a Google punishment. But absolutely. And again, when we're talking about true accessibility, so there is accessibility that we're talking about from a design point of view, and whether to be able to read stuff and accessibility toolbars that are out there. But true accessibility is meeting people where they want to be, because some people, as we're going back to like what type of content can you consume, some people, even though they can read, can't consume the content unless it's presented in a certain way. We were doing some work with a hospital up in Leeds. It was me trying to reach a lot of patients, and one of the things that they'd done is put some adverts out on mobile, and they were saying, well, in the kind of 50 plus generation, we aren't getting much, and it's like, because the way that they were putting the content out, they're saying that particular generation was a bit nervous about actually putting that, looking at that content, and that's why, and it's and embarrassed that they couldn't do it as well, embarrassed that they wanted to ask whether or not it was okay to. That's what it turned out to be. So again, going back to accessibility, is that truly accessible then? It's I suppose it's a can of worms when you start opening it in that way. But one of the things that we look to do when we're executing marketing campaigns, especially in the kind of healthcare industry, especially when you're marketing to a lot of people, whether it be patients, is creating the content in just lots of different formats, and then presenting it. Here it is as a blog, here it is as a video, here it is as a podcast, here's some facts about it, and you can choose which way you want to then consume that.
Yes,
Watch it, read it, listen to it.
Fantastic.
In any way you want.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, look, let's talk about Wrapped just for another quick moment again. I guess, you've grown the business to a point, Kate, after 9 or so years. And then I guess, you get to a point where, you can scale, or there's a lot of different sort of options ahead of you. Just wondering whether we might be able to dive into sort of what a management buyout is and what that can lead to.
So in the history of Wrapped, there's been COVID, there's been lots of things in there so it's tough. I mean, I've been in business for years, but it's been tough. And what we're really, really good at Wrapped is adapting, and we adapt very, very quickly. So what are the needs? Because that's our job, let's be fair. We should be good at that. So what we needed to do, and I think I've worked with Becky very, very closely for 6 years now, and Becky's taught me an awful lot because I've done brand for such a long time. When she was talking earlier about actually understanding audience, it's changed the way I do brand completely. So we just kind of a bit of a double act in how we do things, and hopefully we get better results from it. So we talked about lots of different things and what we were going to do and all sorts of future things. But there comes a time when you need a bit of fresh energy. I know my age and all those kind of things, and we need a little bit of that buzz back. Some people in the business were ready for change themselves. And we just needed that refresh. I needed that bit of refreshed of, come on then, what's next? And a bit of excitement. And yes, we business plan and do all those things. Of course we do. But I quite like a bit of come on, let's try. If you don't go in for it, if you don't try, you get nothing.
Indeed.
And we say this to our, how brave are you? We say this to our new businesses all the time. Well, I think it's about time we did it as well. So we just needed the fintech that my other business partners have brought, and all this kind of thing. It's new, it's vibrant, it's energy. And I feel younger. It's brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Anything you'd add there, Becky?
I don't think I have anything to add, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think you'll know about this, Luke, as well, but it's being in business is not as easy as everything's. Hard work. It's incredibly hard work. And you constantly need to do things. It doesn't stop, because I think if you ever get that finished thing, then I don't know. You can't ever have a finished thing.
Indeed.
Because audiences move on, move on, move on. So we constantly want to do new things, don't we?
We absolutely do. So one of the reasons that I really wanted to kind of step into this management buyout is because the opportunity to work even more closely with Kate and our other business partner was brilliant, because as someone who's stepping into a CEO role for the first time, I think one of the important things is that you've got to look at your skill set. You've got to look at who you are as a person. You've got to understand where your strengths are, where you can lead, what experience you have, but really reflect on, honestly, what experience you don't have. What are your weaknesses? What can you learn? What do you need to learn? Where are the skill gaps in that? Because anyone who comes along and thinks I'm going to move into a CEO position and runs with it, I believe is just going to fail. Having that kind of self-reflection and going, well, how could I do this, and what other skills do I need alongside me to be successful in this business? And I believe that between the three of us, we have all of those skills.
Yeah.
So where I lack experience, knowledge, or just the way that my personality is, I think the others absolutely fill that with abundance. So to me, it was a bit of, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity of a dream team, really, of if we're going to do this, there is the skills, there's the enthusiasm, there's the knowledge, there's the contacts, there's a willingness to all three of us reflect like that at ourselves and each other. And it's just been a really positive, fun, a bit of a crazy, but in an amazing way, time in the last few months. And I can only see that continuing, really, because if you don't try, you'll always regret, won't you?
That's right. Yeah,
It's a roller coaster. It doesn't stop being a roller coaster.
Indeed.
And I like roller coasters. So
Yeah.
You've got to like them, haven't you, to get on in the first place?
That's right. That's right.
Do you know what? You need resilience. You need to be able to. One of the biggest things I was ever taught, and I was taught it a long, long time ago, was learn to understand the word failure. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just learn to fail fast.
Yes.
Fail fast. Dust yourself off. Have a few tears. Move on.
That's right.
And we're talking in 5 minutes. It's just you know what? Because otherwise, it doesn't work. Everybody fails every single day, and if you don't fail every day, then you haven't tried hard enough.
Indeed.
You know, and there might be silly little things that you've been rubbish at, but guess what, you'll never know what I've just done. It's all those. So we take everything that we do seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's
fun. That has been one of the big things. What can we learn from that, though?
Yeah.
That didn't quite roll up. Okay, what can we learn from that?
We've had a few.
But it's you can't do or be successful at anything unless you really want it and you really have that energy to give. And I think that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. I think a couple of episodes ago we had a guest, Colin Lyon, and he said that your worst day in business can also be your best day in business. And that's business. You don't know where it's going, but fantastic. Now look, we've mentioned branding a couple of times, so I'll see, Kate, do you want to sort of dive into what branding is and why it's important?
So the thing about branding and brand itself, what tends to happen, the way I explain it, is if you were having an extension on your house, you would get planning permission. You would get an architect to draw the plans. You would then lay the foundations, and then you would start to build. And then you decorate and put whatever in there you want to do. And what people tend to do is they might build and then it's decorate. Yeah. And this happens time and time and time again. And I say this because go back 20 years, that's what I'd have done as a designer. What happens, usually you can get to a certain degree, maybe 5 years, certainly 10, and then you decide to make some changes on your extension and it falls and you can't understand why you can't do it, and there's no foundations there to begin with. Mm-hmm. So how I describe it is usually it's brand architecture, and what I mean about brand architecture is the structure of your business. We want to create brand equity and reputation and all those things, but is it clear? Because often we might have fairly really big businesses that have run along and they've added a new product in, they've bought another business, they've done all this, and it's a mess. And inside, you might have 4 or 5 directors that come for a workshop, and even they don't agree with each other. So if they don't agree internally, can you imagine what it's like for the customer?
Yeah.
They just don't have. So the first thing that we do is untangle that to create a clear structure, a clear brand architecture, whether it be house of brands and all those kind of things. So we get that right. We also look at employer brand and the culture side of things, if it's a big enough, and then we can start to look at the foundation, which is your purpose and all those kind of things. Your purpose, I don't use mission values. We do things a little bit differently. So what is your proposition? And if you don't know what your proposition is, it's a problem. But if you've never been through it, why would a business know that?
Yes.
So what we don't do is say, well, what's your purpose? Because that would be patronising.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure when we have our workshops, they come out, I get giddy.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I understand exactly what I can do. I can understand what our difference is.
Yes.
What is your difference? So people say, what's your USP? What do you differentiate on? And we've got to make sure we can do that. So we've got, based on all the research that we've got, based on some audience things that we've got, we know who we're targeting, and then we've got clarity. So it's like being armed with all this wealth of information. And it kind of tells you what it's going to look like. It tells you what it's going to say. It tells you how it's going to sound, because you've done the other things, and it falls into place. So we end up doing a lot of that, don't we?
Yeah.
We do it for some new businesses, but most of the time it's because they can't grow.
And Becky, anything you'd add to that?
I suppose one of the great things actually that I kind of sit in while Kate leads on the brand workshops, because obviously being there from the start is important, from having that digital perspective, and I know what it's coming in the end, so we need to make sure that everything's right for the performance side of stuff. But the clarity is the clarity that people come out with, because sometimes I think people are so when you're in the business day to day and you're doing, and some of the businesses that we're with come in, they've got hundreds or thousands of staff, and the business has grown and grown and grown, and they've kind of come into it, and like I said, everyone's got a little bit of a different opinion of what they sell or why they sell it or how it fits together. And I remember being in one fairly recently, and one of the guys at the end said, "I feel like I put my glasses on for the first time." So just to have that kind of clarity from it's just that external clarity of, and it's them that tell us, it's the stakeholders in the room that tell us. We just facilitate it out of them.
They're the experts, not us.
Indeed.
All we're doing is asking them questions, and it's and so they're giving us the information. We're just putting it in a certain order. So when you're going through it, it's like, so that fits into there. Yeah, I suppose it does.
Yeah.
So that's actually into that section there. Actually it is.
Yeah.
And it just kind of appears.
Yes.
But it allows growth, but it also allows digitally to be able to do your job better, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think one of the important things about that is that you get all the right people in the room right at the start to take that journey.
Yeah.
So all the stakeholders who need to be in that room, because then they understand how you reached the end, the end of the workshop, and what seems to be like a really simple couple of slides. It's taken a long time to get there. But having the right people in the room is really important.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And sometimes you have when you've got quite a few stakeholders, you usually have one that's a bit awkward. And the others warn you. You're not interested. This brand's garbage. It's all nonsense. But when you realise it's not just design, and it's actually going to provide equity, and it changes.
It does.
You usually win. Not just winning them round, because that's wrong. You're getting them to see the value of it, and that's, like you say, that's why we do it with people.
Yes.
We're not just telling you. We're letting you actually feel it and understand it.
Indeed. And look, I guess we'll come on to performance marketing in a moment, which arguably when it comes to marketing, it's like one of the more easily quantifiable sort of areas. So how do you gain board level buy-in for brand?
So when you I think I personally do a lot of goal setting. So I do some personal goal setting, and then Becky and I together do business goal setting. So it's understanding. We work with a lot of companies that are wanting to sell in 3 to 5 years. And when you understand what their goals are, so, and this matters for digital marketing as well, for realization, but when you understand fully and they understand that they have a business plan that usually is wanting like that, because everybody wants more leads.
Yes.
To sell, it's ultimately, even the charities we work for want more philanthropy or whatever they want. When you get that and you understand that, if you don't have that brand strategy to follow it, it will not achieve. Yes, you have to have marketing, but you need to have that brand loyalty. So you have to have awareness, brand understanding. What are you trying to achieve with that? So I think when they understand the goals, that their goals, and it's usually financial, are the same as ours for brand, they give it a lot more respect.
Indeed.
And that's why I'm just touch wood, do get buy-in. I don't think we've not had it yet. We do get buy-in.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, look, and I mean, I guess, if you can tie it back to money, that's what's key. I remember my first role at British Airways, many years ago. It was like the finance and the marketing performance people were only ever interested in performance marketing because they could do an ROI calculation very easily. Whereas, for even back then I was in a social media team, and, people were talking about social not ever taking off as a channel, but actually, it has done. But look, let's dive into performance marketing and, sort of what that involves.
So performance marketing is it's a new term. It's a new term for digital marketing. So it's getting those end results, it's getting those leads in, it's getting those sales in, and it's using all the kind of digital channels to do that. So whether it be SEO, PPC, and the social channels, email marketing, they all come together to make the marketing kind of perform. So that's kind of one of the teams that we have here at Wrapped that I lead.
Yes, fantastic. All right, I'm going to ask maybe a contentious question, but is email marketing dead?
No. There's some incredibly good software, email automation software out there that a lot of people use, and the way to write an email used singularly without any other channel won't be as effective, anywhere near as effective. But also how you analyze that data and what you follow it up with and add value to your potential customer or consumer without blocking up their inbox is the key. So is it dead? No. Is it overused? Yes. Yeah. But so are nearly all channels. I mean, we see, hundreds and hundreds of adverts every day. Yeah. And most of them are done quite badly, so we just ignore them. We zone out of them, and that's when kind of people can think, well, marketing doesn't work because I haven't got something from my Facebook ad that I put on and spent a bit of money on.
Discard it.
Multi-channel approaches are absolutely necessary now. Not every single channel for every single product or service, but an audience-led multi-channel approach is always gonna get the best results.
Yeah, I think on that, because I don't do the digital side, but it's really interesting because what people tend to do, and it's something I would have done before I met Becky, it's I'll create a bit of content, I'll put the same content on Twitter and the same content on, and you just churn that stuff out. So you'll have done this. How many times do you go onto your LinkedIn and you go, oh, I like that. That's so-and-so's put that on. That's interesting. And then you go over to Instagram, he's put the same thing on there. And then you go into something else and you think, oh, bloody hell, I'm on Facebook now. I've just read that twice. Yes. And it's like, oh my God, overkill. Yes. And so you end up, so it's just being really thoughtful of that. Just don't churn the same thing. Yeah. And email marketing, we all get loads, don't we? But I buy clothes from email marketing every bloody day of the week. There is a right time to do it, isn't there? There is a right churn to do it. B2B is a little bit harder than B2C because you're doing volume thing. And obviously you've got data protection.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
But we do get some good results.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
From it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the challenges, and they kind of touched upon it before about the boardroom buy-in from the brand side of stuff, I think it's becoming even more challenging from a digital performance perspective, because when people, we get quite a lot of, well, I did a bit of Google ads, it didn't work, so Google doesn't work. That kind of that level of understanding, and we said that, you know, multi-channel approaches, audience-led multi-channel approaches work a lot better. But I think one of the issues that a lot of businesses have at the moment, especially with a kind of buy-in perspective, is that there seems to be, over the last few years, a kind of cull of CMOs. Mm-hmm. So within a lot of businesses, in very big businesses as well. So what you tend to get is when people work in marketing, they work agency side or client side. So the client side has tended to be people who are kind of marketing managers are left to run the whole marketing for that particular business. And because they're not board level or necessarily kind of director level, when they're bringing what they would like to do, what strategies they would like to the board, to the people who are going to sign off the money, they've got different priorities, and they're not necessarily, I say it's not articulating it properly, it's not necessarily that, it's the decisions that are made in the boardroom and the budgets that are being allocated out. If you've got representation from sales there and people understand, if I get 3 more salespeople, I'm probably going to make this much money, but they don't understand how much money they're going to make from performance marketing, the budget gets cut from marketing. And it gets put into sales. And we've seen this time and time again, where the CMO role has been removed. And it's very difficult then for whoever's in the head of marketing marketing manager, to actually then get the buy-in at board level, because there's such a step up in the I say the understanding of what the priorities are for that board and for the business over the next few years. So we've seen that theme recurring. You know, so you know, people are going and trying to explain some of the marketing, and it's not kind of hitting home because it's not understood, it's not represented. So I think the key to kind of having that representation at board level about marketing, it is really key to then having the implementation done properly, and giving the marketing department, the agency, whoever, the right budget and time allocation to be able to do the job properly.
Indeed. I mean, it just on that one, if you think what Becky's team get, you don't get it so much in brand, but what Becky's team get is a company comes to you, if they just want performance marketing, they come to you when they're pretty desperate. So they're already stressed. So you've got some stressed people who are getting stamped on by their boss, going, we are not getting enough sales, we're not getting enough leads, I want leads now. You know, and this sounds like I'm being negative, but you know, we've got to double turnover, we've got to get another £1 million in. How much have we got to spend? £250 a month. Well, you're not going to get £1 million in spending £250 a month. And even as they write it down, the kind of dawns on them. Maybe not. But it's that thing of, I want them now. So if you think, why would any of us go and part with our money, especially if it's something's expensive, if we've never heard of the company? Why would we do that? We wouldn't. So that's why it takes at least 3 months, usually 6 months, of brand awareness, understanding. And as I call it, in the old-fashioned way, you're warming somebody up.
Indeed, yes.
You've got to warm somebody up. Otherwise, they're not going to buy. They're not ready to buy from you yet. And I've learned that from Becky. But it's, but that's quite a tough one to put across, isn't it? But I want it. But am I going to get it in 6 weeks? Am I going to get, you know? And we're honest. I doubt it.
Do you have an example of kind of what a multi-channel campaign over a 3 to 6 month period would look like?
We do something called Always On. And always on is that brand awareness. It's that thing where we're not expecting leads from it, but it's letting people know. So we still give them information rather than going, let's use Wrapped as an example.
Yeah.
Wrapped, aren't we great? Wrapped, it's not about that. It's finding out about their needs.
Yep.
So it's saying, do you recognise yourself in here? Is this you? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we're not expecting them to click. We're not expecting them to spend money on it.
Yeah.
So it's just awareness, and that usually runs alongside, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's looking at, so a campaign should be looking at, it's a funnel, basically. So if people are at the top of the funnel, if you imagine top of the funnel, this man, top of the funnel, is kind of an awareness phase, and then you kind of got the interest phase and then the buying phase.
Yeah.
So a campaign should run where we're moving people on their online journey through this funnel.
Yeah.
And that could look like, putting ads in front of them on Google when they're searching for, top of funnel search terms, or it's remarketing to anybody who's coming to the landing pages that they've come to from clicking on those adverts.
Yeah.
It's creating really, really useful content, which is presented to them on the platforms that they use on social media for what we call lead magnets, which are pieces of content for consumption. So back in the day, we used to do a lot of gated content where you ask for someone's email address. The majority of content we now do is content for consumption, because what we want to do is show people brands and products that are really useful. So we're not asking for anything back, we're just giving something to the user.
Yes.
So a campaign should have lots of different platforms where we're giving different bits of useful content in the right order to people, moving them down the funnel.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Don't just
Eventually to the buy
Yeah.
now.
People
That's
just
right.
do the buy now straight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you're always going to capture some, but the best to get buy-in and to get loyalty online without ever speaking to a customer, if you do this journey well, they will buy into your brand, and you'll never know about it until they buy now.
Until they buy. Yeah.
Apart from following the analytics, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, the analytics are important because, if you can make an incremental improvement at the top of the funnel, that impact at the bottom is huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's even tougher in B2B, especially when you've got high ticket price leads, because the volume of traffic you get, the volume of people that you actually want to engage with is actually quite small.
Indeed.
Especially when sometimes it's difficult to track with cookies and what's going on there. So understanding or putting in what we call micro conversions along the way, anything that we can then use to remarket, to track, to understand levels of engagement, to understand whether the content we're putting in front of people is being consumed or ignored, to do that kind of level of A/B testing is really important. I mean, we did a lot of work for a healthcare company that, their each lead was worth over £1 million to them.
Wow.
And so they were only wanting a few a month. So the amount of people who we were trying to get in front of was very small. It was account-based marketing level. And to enable us to make those decisions to improve and optimize for engagement and therefore for lead generation, we had to put in so many of these opportunities for micro conversions and understand the journey a lot more detail than you do, for example, ecom, where you just it's a clear journey to purchase.
Indeed, yeah, and I guess for anyone in the audience that might not be familiar with account-based marketing, I guess it's a very targeted approach to say, here are 100 companies that we want to sell to. But micro conversions is a term that I'm not familiar with, so do you mind just defining that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you say, well, a conversion is I want someone to fill out a form, I want a lead. That's a primary conversion. So a micro conversion is, again, a little bit like with a lead magnet. So it might be somebody clicking to watch a video. We know they're interested. We know they've got to this part in our landing page and they're clicking to watch that video, so we know they're interested in that video.
Yes.
And it's giving opportunities where they have to perform something on a page, on the website, or perform something in social that shows a level of intent and interest.
Yes.
So we know they're the right person. We know they're moving on it. And in that case, for example, it allows us to, for example, A/B test. So we could send the same traffic, 50% of the traffic, to one landing page A and one landing page B, and have different videos.
Yes.
And then we'll see how many people are clicking on one or the other, and they call them micro conversions. And if our micro conversions are bigger on A, we then send more people to A.
Yeah.
And we know that particular content around the video is enticing people to click it more, and therefore the intent is better. So we need those to be able to start saying we're moving people down the funnel, or the amount of people that we're engaging with is going to be too small to start those optimizations.
Yes, indeed. Fantastic. And I mean, I really like this micro conversion piece, because I mean, I haven't heard of the term before. I have heard of A/B testing different pages, but then, and you know, I'm sorry if we're going too granular here, but like, how do you know kind of who has watched? Like, let's say there's 100 oil and gas executives, and you know, you're targeting them. Do you then know on a person by person level which one of them have micro converted, or you only find out kind of later on when they buy?
No, unfortunately you don't. Then this is one of the challenges that you get with marketing. You know, numbers.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of time those numbers are anonymized. So, for example, with Google, like their threshold is if they think there's any way of you tracking a person back to who they are, then they won't show you the data.
Wow.
So that's why you've got to kind of work with certain platforms to kind of get that data yourself. But until someone's willing to give you, unless you're using, there's certain software that you can use that will identify a person from a business, or a business, for example, like Salesforce, that'll help you on your way. But who clicked on that video? Not until they go down to the lead.
Fantastic. It's fascinating.
It is, and it's so interesting. I mean, I'm not part of that, but it's so interesting. And every single business, we have to be invested. We have to get to know them. You do really get to detail with their products and everything, because if you don't, and you have to believe in them, we couldn't market something we didn't believe in.
Absolutely.
If somebody comes to us and it's like, you've no chance, we wouldn't do it, because it's, you know, but when we love the people, and we love people, you know, I think that matters massively. When you love people and you get that rapport, you want to help them.
Yes.
To gain those things. So you start finding out. Every day is a learning day. Every day is something new.
It's fantastic. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, look, I think we've had a great discussion about, brand, about performance marketing, and about Wrapped. Just in terms of wrapping up, pardon the pun, I wanted to see whether each of you would like to share a couple of key takeaways with the audience. These can be about business, personal, completely up to you.
I think what I would say, and I can only do this from my experience, long experience, is don't ever being a boss or being having a business can be quite a lonely place. And you think you're the only one that's having these things. Your confidence can go, and all these kind of things. When you're meant to be a leader, all the time you get told leaders do this, leaders do that, and it's just actually maybe reach out, maybe speak to somebody, maybe join a group, and actually understand that you're still a human being. You still make mistakes. It's no big deal at all, and keep that humility and have some humour with it, because if you don't, it becomes a very, very stressful place. And that is how I've kept it. But just have some people. If you're on your own, speak to some other people, and you'll soon realise that some of the things you've done are nothing compared to, And the most biggest thing is enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yeah, you need to know that you enjoy it and understand the why. Otherwise, you'll just be like, nah, would rather do something
Yeah, when you
else.
have a bad day, and we all have bad days,
Yeah.
it'd be like, and we all say that anyway, don't we? What am I doing this for?
Yeah.
And then the next day you go, oh, I remember now.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
I think mine's one that I'm going to steal from someone, and I can't remember who it is I'm going to steal it from. But I can't remember his name, it's really bad. And that is, don't be afraid to be the one to ask the stupid question in the room.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, everybody's thinking it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, if everybody leaves the room not quite understanding some of the things that have gone on in a meeting, or decisions have been made, it's going to be wrong. So be bold enough to be the one who doesn't know the answer, and the other side of it is, and I suppose moving into this new role for me is choose who you support yourself with.
Yeah.
Choose who gives you the support, and choose wisely.
Yeah. That's really, really important, that second one, because it's funny how some people, even though they're meant to be like, your close mates or whatever, they can kind of like chop you down a little bit, eh? So, it's really important. Going back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast as well, knowing what the weaknesses are, and then, filling the gaps. Because if you had a startup and everybody was just a salesperson and you had no one technical, you'd get a whole lot of promises that would never get kept. And as a kind of ex-salesperson myself, I can say that and know that it
each other,
works.
shouldn't we? We should champion each other.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And I think we do that well, don't we?
We absolutely do it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, look, Becky, Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
you.
And we look forward to seeing Wrap's next steps in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.